Husband demanded me to ask for approval to go on a ladies' trip for a few days. I didn't, and now sometimes we tend to do things our own way because we want to prove that we can do this the way we want to and the way we feel like. He had addressed the issue of me always going out at night, and I ignored him. My mind was made up. I didn't want to miss out. I had some sort of FOMO, fear of missing out in me. I felt like if I listened to my boyfriend, I would miss out on a good time. Instead of listening to him, I listened to my friends, and now look at what that had got me. How I wish I listened to my boyfriend and not my friends. When I was left alone, when I found him gone, where were the friends that I had listened to? They were long gone also, and I was left all alone licking my own wounds. I wish I had done differently. Maybe if I had listened for once and obeyed. I wouldn't have found myself in a tough situation that left me confused and depressed. I almost lost myself that time, and I don't want the past to repeat itself. My name is Miley Cage, female 24, and my husband is Raymond Phillips, male 26. Ray, that's how I used to call him, and I met through a mutual friend. Well, my girls and I had gone to one of our male friends' birthday party celebrations in Washington. Ray was Liam's male friend childhood bestie. We didn't know about him up until the day of the party. Ray is a very handsome guy, smart, neat, and sophisticated. He was a fun person. You wouldn't get bored when you were chilling with him. He's very cool, calm, and carefree. 3 months later, Ray and I started dating. We just couldn't keep our feelings in the closet anymore, so we both confessed our true feelings. Our relationship had its share of ups and downs, but we managed to pull through everything through trust and communication. Our relationship was a bliss. We did everything together. We would sometimes go out together to have some fun alone. He allowed me to be free and to be myself. My love for Ray grew fonder and fonder. I had found a best friend, an advisor, and a lover in him. He was my perfect, imperfect situation. Though he had a tendency of going out whenever he got angry or things didn't go the way he was expecting them or the way he wanted to. Another thing about Ray was that he cannot handle or cope well under pressure, especially if it's relationship pressure. He prefers walking out and coming back when the situation is handleable. We dated for 2 years, but during our 1.5 years, things started changing. Ray became distant. He would sometimes come back from wherever he was coming from, moody and uninterested. Mind you, that time I had moved in with him. I moved in with him on our 6th month of dating. He actually begged me to move in with him because he felt like his apartment was lonely and cold without a female figure. After the whole month of convincing and begging he did, I finally gave in and accepted his request. I was in love with the guy, so I thought, why not accept his request? So I remember one day when it was Ray's birthday. I had planned to make a nice, intimate, and romantic dinner for him while I would surprise him with my sexy number that I had bought specially for his birthday. I had cooked. When I say I cooked, I mean I went all out, made all his favorites. I even lit the candles and did those romantic decor things. I made it like a romantic and intimate picnic kind of thing. I waited for Ray that day. I even tried calling him, but he was not answering. In fact, he had switched off his phone when I tried to call him for the 3rd time. From there, I saw that he was somehow ignoring me or avoiding me. I asked myself what was happening with him and asked if I had done something wrong, because the way he was acting made me think that maybe I had done something wrong, but I was not aware. I stayed the whole night that time and even dozed off on the couch. The surprise was ruined. The birthday romantic intimate picnic was ruined. He stood me up, which was something he had never done before. I was so disappointed and heartbroken by what he had done. He actually came back the following day later. I didn't even know what to say nor do to him because I was so disappointed. I had wasted all my time and energy for him to make his birthday kind of special. Only for him to stand me up like that was the worst part. To ignore my calls, not just ignoring, but he literally switched off his phone when he saw that I was blowing his phone up. In my mind, I had thought that maybe I was a nuisance to him. Maybe I was no longer the girl that he had fallen in love with. Maybe he was not finding me interesting anymore. All those thoughts kept lingering in my mind. They came rushing like a flood, and whenever they did, I would get crushed. My heart would be torn into tiny pieces. I didn't know if I was going in or going out in Ray's life. A lot was no longer promising, and I was actually waiting for anything to happen between us. I tried being patient with him. I tried addressing the issue with him, and he told me that there was nothing wrong between us. He told me that he was dealing with some work pressure. He apologized for the way he had been behaving and promised to change for the better. As much as I did not believe what he was saying, his apology sounded sincere, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I wanted him to prove himself without me going after him like he was a herded cow. Few days passed and he didn't change his behavior. Instead, it got worse to a point that we even argued. There's this one time when I was asking him if he no longer feels me or no longer finds me interesting. He asked why I was asking him that, so I told him all the reasons that I thought he wanted to know so he would know his mistakes and rectify them. Instead of him to keep calm and speak with me in a civilized manner, he decided to just burst out. I was so confused by the sudden burst out, so I asked why he was being defensive because I was asking questions, and he had to give me simple answers. The argument went on and on until it reached the peak point where it got heated, and he decided to just walk out on me and go wherever he was going. I was left there shuttered. I missed my friends. Somehow I was starting to regret ever getting into a relationship with Ray because he had no backbone. He didn't know how to stand up for his sh*t, and it was somehow pissing me off and turning me off. On the weekend, I decided to just text my friends and ask if we were ready and packed up for our girls' trip to Seychelles the following day. As I was waiting for them to respond, Ray walked in and asked to speak to me. I gave him a go-ahead, then he started by apologizing for the way he was behaving and for walking out on me. He told me that he had found out something bad about Melissa, one of my friends, female, 26. He told me the most shocking things that I didn't even want to believe because Melissa was like my best friend, my sister. He told me that Melissa was a body seller. After her parents passed on, she had no place to go, so she resorted to selling her body to old men. That came as a huge shocker to me, but that was not all because he dropped the biggest bomb of them all. He told me that Melissa had been with some bad guys and she owed a loan shark, moneylender, a huge amount of money since her parents didn't leave her with anything. So the moneylender wanted his money back, or she should find a girl that would satisfy the man sexually until he says she has paid off her debt. Ray told me that all the other 3 friends of mine or ours actually knew about Melissa's problem since they also date older men to make easy money. I had been warned by my husband Ray not to go out late at night, especially after the recent news of my bestie, or my so-called ex-bestie Melissa, and the shenanigans that she had put herself into. But I had plans with my friends and I didn't want to cancel on them. Yes, they had replied, and I didn't want Ray to manipulate me or emotionally blackmail me to stay in the house after I had stayed for too long tolerating his nonsense. So, I ignored his warning or whatever it was that he was doing and set out for the girls' trip, which was going to be some breath of fresh air to me. We had planned to meet up in town before we went to the club that my friends had recommended, then head to the airport as our flight was to depart later, not knowing that I was actually setting myself a very dangerous trap. My mundane routine consisted of work, occasional social outings, and returning home by nightfall. One day, however, curiosity overcame my usual cautious nature, leading me down a path of unforeseen consequences. It was a typical Saturday evening and the sun was setting, casting an orange hue over the horizon. As I prepared for a relaxing night outside the house, a friend called me and told me to meet them at some newly launched club, so that later we would join a spontaneous gathering at a popular nightclub downtown. Feeling the monotony of my life, I seized the opportunity, ignoring the warning that lingered in my mind. My boyfriend has always been a reliable source of advice, cautioning me about the perils lurking outside after dark. Ray pleaded with me and even threatened to leave if I went ahead with my plan of going to the girls' trip with my friends without his permission. As much as I loved Ray so much, but he had disrespected and disregarded me so much to a point that I even saw myself as a nuisance or an irritating wife to him. I needed a break and some air to breathe. I needed to be away from Ray, and going out with my friends was actually what I had needed. Little did I know that that unknown Saturday night in another country was going to be my worst nightmare. Later on, I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding in my chest as I tried to make sense of the nightmare that had just consumed my sleep. I had dreamt of my best friend Melissa, betraying me in the worst possible way, selling me to pay off her debts. It was a horrifying scenario, one that I couldn't shake from my mind no matter how hard I tried. But as I lay there in bed, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt creeping up on me. Maybe it was just a dream, but the truth was that Melissa had been acting strange lately. She had been avoiding me, canceling plans at the last minute and even snapping at me for no reason. I had brushed it off as stress from her financial troubles, but now I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong, not especially after what Ray had told me. I glanced over at my husband Ray, who was still fast asleep beside me. He had warned me about Melissa and her shady behavior, telling me to be careful and not trust her blindly. But I had brushed off his concerns, dismissing them as jealousy or paranoia. After all, Melissa had been my best friend since forever. She was like a sister to me. Surely she wouldn't do anything to betray me. Would she? It had been months since I had spent quality time with my friends. The demands of everyday life had taken over, leaving me feeling drained and isolated. When the opportunity arose for a much-needed ladies' trip to the mountains for a few days, I jumped at the chance to rejuvenate and reconnect with my friends. However, there was one problem standing in the way of my escape: my controlling husband. He had made it clear that he expected me to ask for his approval before making any plans to go away, especially for an extended period of time. I knew that if I asked him, he would likely come up with a slew of reasons why I couldn't go, and I didn't want to deal with the argument like how he did when he told me about Melissa. So I made the decision to keep my plans a secret. I packed my bags in the dead of night, leaving a note behind to explain my sudden disappearance. I knew that my husband would be furious when he woke up to find me gone, but I couldn't let his controlling nature hold me back any longer. Disregarding my husband's words of wisdom and warning, I hastily dressed up, slipping into a stylish outfit that exuded a newfound confidence. A quick glance in the mirror reassured me, and I headed for the door, keys jingling in my hand. As I stepped outside, a cool breeze brushed against my cheeks, reminding me of the dubious choice I had made, ignorantly dismissing any nagging doubts. The vibrant city lights welcomed me, transforming the dark night into a swirling kaleidoscope of colors. Pulsating music reverberated through the air, igniting a rush of adrenaline within me. For hours I danced, laughed, and mingled, soaking in the contagious energy of the crowd. It felt as if time stood still, as if this was the destiny I had been searching for all along. I wanted to forget about my relationship problems and have fun. As I drove towards the mountains with a sense of freedom and excitement, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in the pit of my stomach. What if he found out where I was and came after me? What kind of retaliation would he unleash for disobeying his orders? I arrived in town where my friends were waiting for me and had agreed to meet there. The following day after I had arrived, my worries faded away as we spent our days hiking, laughing, and catching up on each other's lives. The fresh mountain air and the company of my friends were exactly what I needed to recharge my soul. I had a great time with my friends, laughing and dancing the night away. Well, we were supposed to stay for the whole weekend, but somehow the girls decided to extend it a bit. But as the night wore on, I started to feel a sense of unease. I checked my phone and saw that it was past midnight and I hadn't called Raymond. I knew Ray would be worried sick about me being out of the country and not communicating at all for the whole day. I decided to call him and let him know that I was safe and that I would be home soon since the girls had decided to stay for longer. But when I called, he didn't answer. I thought maybe he had turned off his phone or was in a different room, so I tried calling again a few minutes later. Still no answer. I started to feel a sense of panic. Why wasn't he answering my calls? I tried calling his sister, but no one had seen or heard from him. I decided to just leave him a message, hoping that Ray would probably call me back when he gets the message. When I was about to go, Melissa told me that she wanted to introduce me to someone. I wondered who it was because we were in a foreign country, so how would Melissa know people from Seychelles? But then I agreed to be introduced to that person. I mean, what Ray had told me earlier had long gone out of my head, so it didn't come to me that I was going to be introduced to the moneylender. Melissa took me to some small office and told me that that was where we would meet the guy. With my ignorant self, I said okay. So we went in and found a middle-aged guy. I think he was mid-50, if not 60. She introduced me to him as the friend she was talking about. I got confused and looked at Melissa, hoping to get clarification of what she was talking about. But the girl just avoided eye contact and told the guy that she would leave us alone to have a chat. My mind raced back to Ray. I had thought that if Ray was to find out about this, he would actually explode. The middle-aged man introduced himself as Isaacs. I didn't even introduce myself. I just looked at the guy and waited for him to tell me what his story was. The guy furthered by summarizing the Melissa story that Ray had told me about. He told me that Melissa told him that she had talked to me and we have agreed that I would be the girl that would satisfy him and be his escort, until Melissa's debt was fully paid up. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So my friend, or the person I had considered my best friend, actually sold me to the devil. She borrowed or took money from this Isaacs guy with the hope that I was the one to pay the price. I told the guy that I had never talked to Melissa about anything like that and I didn't even know what was going on with her. One thing I was grateful for was that the guy was kind enough to allow me to explain to him why I said I didn't know anything, while Melissa was so sure that I was the one to be the guy's sexual toy and an escort. I told the guy my truth and asked him to let me go because I had a husband at home that was waiting for me. The guy looked disappointed and enraged, but he kindly allowed me to go. I couldn't believe Melissa. I mean, how can you do that to your friend? Even if it wasn't your friend. How can you sell another woman to a man just because you want her to be used so that your debts can be paid off? I regretted ever going to that club and to even extend my stay. I even texted the girls and reminded them about the trip and how much I couldn't wait. From there and then, I knew that I had to rush home and apologize to Ray for not listening to him when he warned me. But as the days passed and the time came for me to return home, a sense of dread crept back in. I knew that my husband would be waiting for me, seething with anger at my defiance and ignorance. I couldn't bring myself to face him just yet. I made the decision to go to my parents' house for a few days, hoping that he would have calmed down by the time I returned. I didn't want to go back to the suffocating atmosphere of our home, where his control hung over me like a dark cloud. And I knew that he would say, "I told you so," so I wasn't ready for any of that. As the days turned into weeks, my parents began to worry about my safety and theirs after I told them what Melissa did. So they urged me to face the music and go home, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was afraid of what awaited me on the other side. One evening, as I sat by the fire with my parents, a sudden knock at the door sent a jolt of fear through me. My heart raced as I approached the door, unsure of who could be on the other side. To my horror, it was my husband standing on the doorstep, his face a mask of fury. He had called my parents to know where I was, and now he stood before me, demanding an explanation for my betrayal. As the tension in the room reached a boiling point, I realized that I couldn't continue living in fear of his control any longer. With a newfound sense of courage, I stood my ground and told him that I refused to be controlled any longer, but not before I apologized for going on the girls' trip and not listening to him. The confrontation that followed was intense and emotional, but in the end, I walked away with a newfound sense of freedom and empowerment. I had defied his demands and stood up for myself, and in doing so, I had reclaimed my independence and autonomy. As I drove back home, the weight of his control lifted from my shoulders, and I felt lighter than I had in years. I knew that the road ahead would be rocky and uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt confident in my ability to navigate it on my own terms. And as I drove into the horizon, I knew that I was on the path to a new beginning, free from the shackles of his control. Maybe he would change and be the husband that I love and need. But when I arrived at home, my heart sank. The house was dark and empty. I called out for Ray, but there was no answer. I tried calling his phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I prayed and hoped that he wouldn't do what he said he would do if I went out with my former friends. How I wish I had listened to him. He told me the exact same thing that the Isaac guy had told me, and I regret myself for not believing him. I should have trusted my husband and listened to his warnings, but what did I do? I messed it all up, all for what? For a grudge that I had held on him. I searched the house, but there was no sign of him. I checked his phone and saw that it was still in the living room next to the couch. I tried calling him again, but it went straight to voicemail. I felt a chill run down my spine. Where could Ray be? Why had he left the house without taking his phone or any of his belongings? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I spent the rest of the night pacing back and forth, trying to call Ray and hoping that he would answer, since he had a second phone which was not in the living room, but he never did. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen table. It was from Ray, and it said that he had left me. He was sorry, but he couldn't be with me anymore, and stated that he wasn't about to start tolerating disrespect because the way I continued to go to the girls' trip without his permission showed him the kind of person that I am and that I am disrespectful. He had packed his bags and left the house. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe that Ray had just left me like that without any explanation or goodbye. I was devastated, and I didn't know how I was going to move on from this. It's been a few weeks now, and I'm still trying to come to terms with what happened. I miss Ray, but I know that I need to move on. I'm trying to focus on my own healing and moving forward, but it's not easy. I wish I could turn back the clock and go back to change everything. All I can do is sit here and cry. My home had been stripped bare, devoid of the memories and belongings that defined my existence. Each room was an empty shell, devoid of life and purpose. Panic engulfed me as I realized the gravity of my actions. Desperation clawed at my throat and my heart pounded, sending tremors throughout my body. Unfathomable regret seeped through my veins as I finally discerned the reason behind the tragedy that befell my once cherished sanctuary. My foolish decision to ignore my husband's admonishments had paved the way for my husband to leave me and find someone else better. Every valuable possession, each priceless memento, had vanished in an instant, leaving only an indelible emptiness behind. Broken, I sunk to the floor, tears streaming down my face, mingling with the remnants of my shattered dreams. The consequences of my recklessness echoed mercilessly in my mind, urging me to reconsider my choices. It was a sobering realization. My actions had consequences, and the price I paid was immense. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The memory of that fateful night haunted me, serving as a perpetual reminder of the naivety that had marked my path. The love of my life, the only person who had shown me genuine love and care, never returned, and I was left to my own devices to rebuild my life from the ruins. It always breaks my heart whenever I think of the way my relationship with Raj ended. I miss him, and if I was to be given a chance to rectify my wrongs to save my relationship with Raj, I would. Even though I still think he took a very dumb and cowardly move to end our relationship. He should have waited for me to come back so we would talk about everything and find a solution to our problems. I now knew that the story he told me about was true, and it had been haunting me ever since. Ever since that day, I still get shivers down my spine when I think about what Melissa wanted me to do with that old man. I hate them so much. I no longer want to see myself associating with any of them. I had no friends, no husband, I was just me. I had cut all of the friends I had because I couldn't trust them anymore. I didn't know who to and not to trust anymore because they had shown me that they were not real friends that one could rely on. But they were poisonous snakes that would bite you and leave you with a very huge scar and a deadly poison in your system that would eat all your body cells and destroys them bit by bit until you were left with nothing, then you would die. Those were the friends I had. My brother Jonathan came to my room and showed a video of me and Ray being intimate. I couldn't believe that the video that I had taken with my ex-husband, and unbelievably that person also posted a picture of me getting all kinky and naughty with my husband. It was just hard to believe. I mean, why would someone post a video and a picture of me and my husband on social media? And to top it all, there was a caption on the video that was written, "She moans like a sick koala," imagine that. That caption did a number on me, and I didn't know what to do with myself, really. I wanted to end my life, but at the same time, I thought of my family and my life plans. No. So with the money I had on my accounts that I had got when the divorce was finalized between Ray and I hired a private investigator to investigate who had posted the video and a picture, and find out why they stooped so low to destroy my life. My parents and my business mentor were truly amazing to me. The support they had given me was beyond measure. I would really appreciate them even if I were to take my last breath. So a week later, a private investigator got back to me with the feedback information, and I couldn't believe the person who had posted my picture and a video. Well, it was actually the one I trusted the most who did that. For what reason, I also don't know till today. I found out that Raymond, my ex-husband, was the one who had leaked the video and wrote the nasty caption about me. Well, I should have known that the video had Ray written all over it. I don't even know how I missed his writing or typing style. He had called me all sorts of names and told the whole world that I had played with his heart and broke it. He even wrote that he had seen a future with me and thought that we would spend the rest of our lives together, but my behavior and disrespect that I had shown him made him think that I wanted to be one wearing pants in the house. Unfortunately, there can be only one bull in the corral. What caught my eyes more and shut me was the part where he had written how much of a disgrace in women's species, and he wished me nothing but full of pain and suffering, just like how he had suffered when I went ahead and took the trip with the girls after he had warned me about it. That really did a number on me, and people were bashing me, agreeing with what Ray had written. My father always told me to stop living to please people and looking for validation in other people, because at the end of the day, when I die, I would die alone, just like how I was born. So giving my attention to what people were saying about me meant I was giving them power over me to destroy me. And if I react to everything they say or post about me, it would mean that I was giving them a platform to keep on hurting me, and they would always win. What my father said to me really helped me think more about my life, and that I shouldn't live my life to please people because a human being never gets satisfied. So if I gave them the platform that they were seeking for in my life, they would continue striking and keep bringing my past to destroy me. As angry and humiliated as I was, I continued running my business. Yes, I had lost my husband, but I didn't lose myself this time around, and I vowed to myself to make sure that I elevate instead of going down. 2 weeks of feeling sorry for myself and closing myself in my bedroom. I then decided to wake up and stop having a pity party for myself because it was not going to unbreak my heart, nor bring back Raymond or undo the mistake that I made. So I began to realize that I needed to get up and move on. I couldn't change the past, but I could control my future. I started by taking care of myself, by eating healthy and exercising regularly. I also started seeing a therapist to help me work through my feelings and come to terms with the separation. I knew that I had stressed my parents a lot because my mother was no longer herself. She had lost a few kilos, and I felt really bad about that because if I didn't act like I was the first person to be heartbroken and to be dumped, I wouldn't have stressed them like that. Which was also the reason why I had taken the decision to go on a healing journey. Not for myself only, but also my parents. They deserved getting their daughter back. It wasn't easy, but I slowly began to heal. I started to focus on my own needs and desires rather than constantly trying to please my ex-husband. I also started to explore my own interests and hobbies like painting and hiking, and I discovered a new sense of purpose and joy in my life. I had to heal completely first before I would think of having another guy in my life again. Even though it was not going to be like the relationship I had with Ray, but I had to move on. The relationship I had with Ray, I used to call it something special and rare. It was a perfect, imperfect kind of marriage relationship because of how we used to be and how we loved each other, even with his controlling self, but then I blew all that. As the months passed, I began to feel like myself again. I still had moments of sadness and regret, but they were fewer and farther between. I had learned to let go of the past and embrace the present, and I was starting to see a bright future ahead of me. My parents were happy with my improvement, so I decided to start a small business that would help me not to be cooped up in the house the whole day. Since I had qualifications in interior designing, I decided to venture on that business. It was not easy starting it from the start, but I did, with the support I got from my parents. However, from the ashes of despair, a newfound strength emerged. I resolved to heed the warnings of those wise enough to know better, to never put my safety and security on the line. With unwavering determination, I transformed the gaping hole within me into a source of motivation, giving rise to a vigilant and astute version of myself. I decided to start therapy, which is the first route to the healing journey right. I had to make peace with everything for my own good. Thus, although I lost my material possessions, I gained immeasurable wisdom and resilience. As I gradually pieced my life together, I undertook a mission to share my cautionary tale, and tirelessly echoed Mr. James's discarded words of advice to anyone willing to listen. For there is a profound beauty in caution, an inspiration within every tale of redemption. Please help me understand some terms of a relationship, because I still don't know what went wrong in my relationship with Ray. I still need Ray. I miss him so much. What I should do to get him back, even though he has humiliated me in the whole world. Am I a fool for still needing him and loving him? Please give me advice. I'm lost.